Commission meeting of Tuesday, February 21st, 2023. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Secretary, please take roll.
David Franz.
Present.
Mary
Present.
Rabinowski.
Present.
Larry Jones.
Present.
Sharon Walker.
Present.
Chris Lake.
Present.
Jim Hurst.
Present.
Cindy Madrick.
Present.
All members are present. In your packet, there was a set of minutes from the January 17, 2023 meeting. Is there any comments, additions, deletions to those minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Motion carries. So approved. We have a request for continuance, docket number 2023-01Z, ophthalmology practice rezoning 11695 East 550 South, Zionsville. Petition for the rezoning of the 1.288 plus minus acres from the RSF2 zoning district to the urban neighborhood business B1 district, also being in the Michigan Road overlay. Was there going to be somebody present for that?
On the video,
On the video.
we should have Don Cross.
Can you please promote him? Please proceed.
Yes, good evening. Attorney John Cross here representing the petitioner on this property. As stated, there is a request for continuance that came about today. Brief history of this one. The property was being sold to the original petitioner who was going to use it for medical office purposes. And development as of last Friday resulted in him backing out of the purchase of the property, not moving through with it. So the property owner, who is Block A LLC, has decided to take over the petition and move forward with the rezoning to B1 with no specific use. The request for the continuance is because the prior petitioner had been in discussions with the nearby HOA of the neighborhood to the west, and they had discussions. And since we now have a new petitioner, the HOA requested a continuance so that we can further discuss with them. So we had no objection. So we are requesting a continuance to the March 20th hearing to further discuss with the HOA.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions, comments from any of the members of the Plan Commission? If not, is there a motion to continue this matter to the March 20th meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Motion carries. We'll see you next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Continued business, dockets number 2022-53 PP and 2022-54 DP, Epcon Communities, the courtyards of Russell Lake, 8901 and 90085 East Oak Street, Zionsville. Petition for the approval of primary plat for a 150 lot residential subdivision being zoned rural single and a 2-family residential R2 with 4 requested waivers of the subdivision control ordinance. And a petition for the approval of a development plan for a 150 lot single family subdivision being zoned rural single and 2-family residential R2 with proposed waivers of the subdivision control ordinance. We're doing something a little bit different this month. Starting this, we're going to have staff report first to kind of tee everything up.
Thank you. As mentioned, we have 2 companion petitions regarding this property. First is a primary plat request, and then also a development plan approval request. The courtyards of Russell Oaks would be a 150 lot single family residential development on 97 acres. And we have a number of things I want to point out to the Plan Commission that you specifically need to focus on tonight regarding this development. The first is that when a portion of this property was rezoned in 2020, there was a master conceptual plan as adopted as part of that rezoning. And one of the requirements of the rezoning was that any future development be developed in substantial compliance with that master plan. The primary plat and the development plan before you, from staff's opinion, complies with that requirement, but you as Plan Commission, you need to make that determination as well. So the first thing that you need to do is determine if the primary plat is in substantial compliance with conceptual plan from the 2020 rezoning for either of the petitions to move forward. The total number of units is unchanged. It remains at 150, which was part of the rezoning, but differences include lot locations and the addition of an emergency access drive on the west side of the subject property. Originally, the emergency access was shown as a second cut off of Oak Street. So that is the first item that we would charge you with to discuss. Following that, there are 4 subdivision control ordinance waivers that must be considered. First is regarding cul-de-sac length. The ordinance states that in no event shall a cul-de-sac measure more than 800 feet in length, measured from center line of an intersecting street, excluding another cul-de-sac, to the center point of the radius of the vehicle turnaround. The request tonight is to allow for the private road Olympic Court to have a length of approximately 1,150 feet from its intersection to Yosemite Drive. Waiver number 2 is a requirement where driveway distances from street intersections. There's a requirement that no driveway shall be located within 75 feet of the intersection of 2 streets. Staff has reviewed the primary plat and found that the number of lots affected by this requirement are few, with most occurring at T intersections. The third waiver request deals with centerline radius for street curves. The design requirement is that design standards for streets of the design and construction standard for the town. These design standards allow for street curves to be no less than 300 feet. The request is to allow for the radius of some of the street curves to be less than this radius. The fire department does not oppose this waiver. They have been provided an auto turn exhibit. But the fire department does request or does recommend restriction of parking to one side of the street in the affected areas. The final waiver request is for sidewalks and paths, and we will get into this in some depth, so please bear with me. Section 193.053 establishes sidewalks shall be required for all public streets, including any perimeter public streets along the outer boundaries of the subdivision, and shall be located along each side of the public street within the dedicated non-paved portion of the street right of way. The petitioner is prepared to install this path along the majority of the site frontage, but the need for a waiver of this requirement occurs in 2 locations along the site's Oak Street frontage. DPW and the petitioner have agreed to a set of commitments for the delayed installation and letters of credit for payment of these 2 locations. When you came in at your seat, you would have found a packet of material with a paper clip on it. First of all, the first 2 items in that packet are 2 letters of interest regarding the overall development. But I'd direct your attention to the last page of that packet that I gave to you. And that is a set of commitments that we'll receive today, provided by the petitioner's representative. They are commitments concerning the use and development of the real estate property, specifically for the perimeter bike path along Oak Street. These commitments have been reviewed by our DPW staff. DPW staff is in agreement with this solution because, as I mentioned, there are 2 areas of this path that are problematic. On the extreme west end of the frontage of the Oak Street frontage, Russell Lake essentially comes right up to the right of way. And so physically, the petitioner is requesting, how can we construct a pathway here without going to extreme design measures? And their concern is, when Oak Street, should it be widened, all of a sudden their extreme design measures and construction actions are going to be taken out with the widening of Oak Street. On the extreme east end of the site's frontage, we have significant grade change, where to construct a path that would be ADA compliant would result in essentially a bridge ending at nowhere, because at the property line, it's just a sheer drop off. So what they are proposing is to provide letters of credit so that when paths from either end do come in to meet the pathway that they would construct along the areas where it is feasible, that they are prepared to place a letter of credit to cover the costs of those two extreme ends and what would be required there. That is why the waiver of pathway is required. It's for those two ends. Again, the petitioner is agreeing to put in a 10-foot wide pathway along the frontage where it can be done today. The waiver is needed for what will be needed in the future. The third item of interest to the Planning Commission would be drainage of the site. One of the letters that was provided to you in the packet that was waiting for you was a letter from an adjoining neighbor. Proposed development will be affecting the existing natural drainage of the subject site. The staff comment letters identify remaining items to be addressed. And again, the adjoining landowners provided a letter outlining their concerns. Regarding the staff recommendations for the three different petitions, first, or not only the petition, or I'm sorry, the two petitions and the waivers. Staff does recommend approval of the four waivers of the subdivision control ordinance. Regarding the primary plat, staff recommends conditional approval of the petition, subject to the resolution of the items noted within the comment letters. Regarding the development plan approval, staff is also recommending conditional approval, subject to the same item resolution of the items within the comment letters, and the addition of a submittal of the tree inventory along the eastern property line for staff's review. The petitioner is going to be utilizing much of the existing tree line along the eastern portion of the subject site to meet their requirements for buffer plantings. And we just don't have the fully detailed tree inventory plan from that. It is a very thick area of growth and wide. So I'll be surprised if when the inventory comes back, if additional plantings are needed. That would surprise me. But we don't have the inventory back, so I don't want to commit to that yet. With that, that concludes the presentation of the staff reports.
All right, thank you. Petitioner, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the record, my name is Mike Andrioli, 1393 West Oak Street here in Zionsville. I represent the major developer of the project, EPCON, and they are represented here by Dale Piper from EPCON Communities. In addition, Jim Knighton is here, and he is a principal in Kendallwood Realty. Jim and Kendallwood will be handling the estate lots that will border the lake itself. Those two gentlemen are here to hopefully answer any questions you may have as well. And finally, Brett Huff from Kimley Horn is here tonight to be able to go ahead and answer any technical questions that you may have. My formal presentation is going to try to center on the concerns or the issues that were raised by staff that kind of highlight your consideration for this evening. First, however, since this is EPCON's really first introduction to members of the Planning Commission, they've not developed here before, I think we want to take a little time, and I think Mr. Pfeiffer has a short presentation to talk about the product itself, what EPCON does, the amenities facility that is there, and then we'll move on to some of the other matters that we can discuss with you tonight that was raised by staff. Dale?
Greetings, I'm Dale Pfeiffer with EPCON Communities. Thank you, Mike, and thank you to staff, first of all, for getting us here. It's always a pleasure to work with Janice and Roger. So I just want to go through a little bit of background of EPCON and what makes us so unique. We've been in business since 1986. We're based in Dublin, Ohio, and our entire focus has been building age-targeted 55 plus homes for that demographic. With our franchisees partners, EPCON has developed over 420 active adult communities across the nation. We opened up a corporate office here in Indy about 2 years ago, and currently building in communities in Westfield, Carmel, and Fishers, on sites, by the way, that were denied previously zoning by other home builders. They were denied their zoning. One of our franchisees built a successful community here in Zionsville, just down the street behind the Catholic Church. And it was well received by Plan Commission at the time. But with Russell Oaks, I can tell you we'll raise the bar from that community if you're familiar with it. We've freshened up the architecture. We've improved the floor plans, and we've really dialed in the needs of our customers. Our brand is unique. We build courtyard-centric homes that are targeted to baby boomers, and they're uniquely designed to connect the indoors with the outdoors and create this experience around the community. We build lifestyle communities, not just homes. So that means we don't sell off the lots to other home builders. It's all about the courtyard design for us. We work with visionary architects on a copyrighted courtyard home design that really brings a custom signature home for our buyers. There's truly a need in the marketplace. Our typical buyer is either an empty nester, having lived in Zionsville for years, and now they don't need that big yard. They don't need that big maintenance, or they are parents of current Zionsville residents, and they're trailing their kids to be closer to their grandkids. And so we build deed restricted communities. We have strict covenants in place. In fact, the entire perimeter around our homes are effectively permanent green spaces. You can't have any play sets. You can't have any basketball goals, no decks, no hot tubs outside of our courtyard area. All of our communities will be HOA maintained. So that creates a uniform manicure look that nobody needs to worry about any mowers or snow blowers. It's a true lock and leave for our buyers. Our homes have high price points. They really scream quality and custom. Interesting to note, our people in our homes are 50% less people than a typical single family development. And so that alleviates concerns about impact on traffic and services and schools. So it stands to reason with fewer people, that results in less traffic. We've got a strong tax revenue base with our homes. With the increased tax bases, the schools will benefit because there's literally no impact on the schools. And then last, our resident is good for the local community. I like to say that they're givers and not takers. They've got money to spend and time to commit to the community. So a little bit about the development plan. As you can see, there's a gas line pipeline easement that cuts diagonally through the site. And so everything to the north of the site will be developed by Mr. Jim Knighton, who's here with us. He is planning for 10 lakefront state lots, and he anticipates those homes to be custom built homes over $1 million price points. EPCON will build its 140 lot detached lifestyle community and everything below that. And we promote close connected communities for our residents. And that means they're all walkable, and activities are driven to the front of the homes and internal to the development. We have a fair amount of open space. I think more than 50% of the development, as you can see, is open space. And the cross-hatched area to the right is where our tree preservation areas would be. This is a quick look feel of the homes. Our typical home is a single story, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, all on the first floor, no steps, no mowers. We've got 2.5-car garages, and the average square footage is about 2,000 square feet in the homes. We've got a high quality architecture, 50-year engineered sidings, cultured stone accents, and 30-year architectural shingles. It's all about the courtyards for us. All of our homes will feature a private courtyard that creates a dramatic indoor-outdoor experience. And the courtyards, as you can see in this overview here, they would extend from the left home, from a panoramic window over to the blank wall of the right home. So the courtyard extends over the lot line in a courtyard easement. So this is a depiction of the rear yard. And with our courtyard design, all of our backyards effectively have this built-in buffer yard. They're technically rear yards, but they're owned by the homeowner themselves, but maintained by as common area by the HOA. As you can see, the white fences, they connect the homes and screen the courtyards. And since nothing is permitted outside of the courtyards, the result is a pretty nice maintained view from the adjacent properties. Amenities on site. All of our communities have significant amenities for our residents, and the clubhouse and the pool are the heartbeat of the community, where we promote active wellness lifestyles to our community. Surrounding the clubhouse is pickleball, bocce ball, community gardens, plus a walking trail in the woods to the south, internal to the development. And then the clubhouse itself has the same high quality architectural features as our homes, 50-year engineered siding, cultured stone, and so on. And this is the entrance. So we are very particular about our entrances. It's upscale. It screams you have arrived when you drive into the neighborhood. And as a side note, we understand we all have to come back for a sign variance because we like to have a nice significant sign, monument sign at the entrance. And so that's it. In closing, I just feel with our high value, low impact plan, it's a really good positive outcome for the by right zoning. Now, turn it back to Mike, answer any questions. Yeah.
Thank you, Dale. I want to address some of the issues that staff had raised that I think is important. I hope for those of members that were on the Plan Commission when we went through our rezoning, I hope that you'll notice a substantial difference in the reaction to this particular proposed development versus the zoning of it when we went through it. We've taken a lot of time to try to meet with the surrounding property owners, as we promised we would before we come back with any type of development plans or platting of the subdivision. And in fact, before we even move forward with our filings, we met with the Armstrongs, and Mr. Armstrong's here tonight, and you have a letter from Mrs. Armstrong. They are probably the most effective property that we have to this site, as they unfortunately bought their property that's very close to our property line a few months before we actually came in with our petition. And they didn't know about us. We didn't know about them in terms of buying the property, but obviously we've tried to be sensitive to their concerns. So much so that what we attempted to do was, and I think they support this for sure at this particular point, is that we've moved our units to the outside adjacent to their property, and we've put the roadway to the inside because there was concern as to how we were going to screen their property effectively. There's a pipeline easement there that we can't do anything with. We can't actually go in and plant trees and those types of things. We have restrictions on that. So there was a legitimate concern at that time as to how we were going to screen that so they weren't getting the brunt of lights and the traffic noise that would be going by their home, given its proximity. So we've kind of flipped those, had the house on the outside, and as Dale explained to you, all of these homes will have fences across the backyard, and the actual backyard itself between the fence and the actual lot line will not have anything in them. They're not going to have playgrounds or play sets or anything like that. Everything's going to be focused in the courtyard itself, not in the back areas. And so all of those will have fences. So that is a slight deviation from the original master plan that we hope that you find is acceptable at this particular point in time. The other thing is, as we were going through the development process and a number of meetings with staff regarding this particular project, in our discussions with the fire marshal, he continued to raise concern about 2 points with regard to our alternative or emergency entrance off of Oak Street. It was legitimately farther away to the back lots that might have to be served to the west. Because as you'll recall, the emergency entrance was to the east of our main entrance, not to the west, because of the lake obviously being there. So he raised that concern. He recognized that we had proposed that and the rezoning was done with that commitment, but he continued to raise concerns as to how we might address it. The other thing that was a concern from a water line standpoint is we had to loop our water system. And his indication was the best way to loop that system would be to see if we could try to go west into Russell Lake Drive. Since they're installing water lines there, loop it as far west as we can loop it in terms of providing the maximum benefit that he would see to have a loop system out there. So essentially what we did is we talked to the adjacent neighbor there, and we've acquired a part of his ground in order to go ahead and put in a water line that will be looped to the water lines that are in Russell Lake, extending just straight on to Russell Lake Drive and into that particular system. The only other use is for an emergency entrance. This will not be a road, and I know we have a concerned neighbor to the south of this. This will not be a road. It will be an emergency entrance. I hope it will never have to be used. Most of the emergency entrances that we've had throughout town have never been used. We all hope and pray that that continues to be the case. But it will be there for an emergency entrance if we need it. And that was a deviation that was supported by Mr. Lips of the police department. You should have correspondence from Mr. Lips in your packet with regard to his approval of that. It solves two problems for our development. It gives a much better and safer entrance from an emergency standpoint to the very western part of this particular development, specifically the custom lots and the lots that are the far west and south end of our development. And it allows us to do an appropriate looping of our water system to provide for future health and safety with regard to the water use out there. So both of those seem to be winners for not only the town, for us. So it's substantial cost. We made an arrangement with the owner of that ground to acquire his ground. His owner's authorization is in the file and was included in your particular packet. That's Mr. Schaefer from the Schaefer Trust, who bought that ground some years ago and still maintains a house that will be located immediately to the north of the entrance. When I put your packets together, we had some large drawings with a lot of documents in them. And I tried to put a note at the top of them as to which page the emergency entrance and the landscape plan for that emergency entrance. It's on 201. And so that you could go easily to that to see what that was going to look like. In addition to being able to acquire the ground and put an emergency path in there for fire department, we also provided a substantial landscape plan that Mr. Schaefer had approved, both north and south of the 12-foot pathway. That's part of the packet that you were provided, and we believe that that substantially modifies and helps the fact that there's going to be a path, albeit probably never be used, but in essence, we provided the landscape in there to try to blunt the look of that and try to provide some relief to the property owner immediately to the south. As I said, Mr. Schaefer had no problem with it to the north, but the property owner to the south had some concerns. With regard to the cul-de-sac and the waiver with regard to that, I have noticed that waiver. We've had this discussion with staff as to really whether it's necessary. And it is for your consideration tonight. I would suggest that it makes sense to grant the waiver because the whole purpose of that is to not have long cul-de-sacs from a public health and safety standpoint and a number of other things. Our emergency entrance basically mitigates the fact that we're going to have that cul-de-sac. That wasn't there originally, but now that we have it there, I suspect that this cul-de-sac waiver may not be necessary, but we're making it necessary for you to vote on that tonight. We've not had that experience before where an emergency entrance would remove that concern. So we thought we'd go ahead and let the Plan Commission weigh in on that particular waiver, even though I think this emergency entrance somewhat mitigates that and gives justification for that waiver. The radius in the streets, Mr. Kilmer is correct. We went ahead and did turning radiuses for Ron Lips at the fire department, and he was satisfied with regard to the turning radiuses, with regard to the reduction of that, and did make a suggestion that we limit parking in the area where we have that. And if that is what the Plan Commission feels would be done, you can make that a condition of that approval, and that would have no problem as far as we're concerned. We're happy to do it or not do it as the Plan Commission sees fit. Side yards, as staff had mentioned, there's only a few of those at intersections. We've granted those historically in the past, and there's not going to be any sight distance or not going to be any impediments with regard to intersections because we provided and maintained that there will be no impediments with regard to people coming into those intersections, even with those driveways close to the streets. They haven't been a problem in any of the subdivisions where they've been granted. There haven't been any issues with them at all. And staff is supportive of that. Fourth, and I think the one that probably involved the most discussion, and I think staff did an excellent job in telling you what the issues are with that, is that our waiver with regard to the sidewalk along Oak Street. We have agreed to construct that 10-foot sidewalk now as part of our plans, as far as we can construct it to the west, up to the lake where we can't get it any farther, and to the east, to the extent that there's an area there where the topography changes drastically, and we'd have to put in a substantial retaining wall. Our concern was if and when Oak Street ever expands, or there's improvements on Oak Street which would require an expansion, depending on what we do or what we put in, those may have to be taken out, depending on how they're done and how the expansion of Oak Street would occur. We didn't want to incur that cost, only to have it taken out. We wouldn't be the one taking it out. The town would. The town has a concern about it incurring those costs as well if they had to go ahead and remove those. So we've decided to go ahead and post an irrevocable letter of credit. I've listed the commitments that we have that we've shared with town. That would have to be wordsmithed by either Mr. Taylor or town council with regard to how the letter of credit is established. But essentially what it does is we put up $240,000. Those are numbers that came from the town. Our numbers were close to that, a little bit smaller than that, but close enough that we took the town's numbers of 240,000 to complete those two ends if and when they need to be completed. This is really a good situation for not only the developer, but it's a good situation for the town because it gives the town flexibility. The town may have a desire at some point to go in and connect the two paths before Main Street's expanded. And if that's the case, they have those funds and an irrevocable letter of credit to be able to go ahead and do that. And although Mr. Taylor knows this extremely well, an irrevocable letter of credit is much better than trying to post a bond. When you post a bond, all you have to do is litigate to try to get the money. With an irrevocable letter of credit, my client has to put up full cash collateral. They just draw down on it. And the letter of credit will be wordsmithed, of course, to make sure that the town is protected with regard to that. And that's part of these commitments that the town wanted. There'll be a sunset provision with that. That would be 5 years, but it would be 5 years after our last lot sold. We're projecting this is going to be about a 2-year build out. So you're looking at 7 years down the road that money is going to be available. Up to 7 years for the town to be able to make a decision. It just gives the town enough flexibility to be able to go ahead and make decisions with regard to the expansion of Main Street or Oak Street and the connection of the two paths, either together or independently of each other. And we just think that's a win-win situation for everybody. Helps the developer because they don't have to upfront the cash right now in order to do it. And there's no plans on the board to connect those things now by the town in any event immediately. So it's just a win-win situation for everybody, we believe, going forward. And most of the bike path, almost all of the lineal foot along Oak Street will have already been put in by my client. We're just talking about the two connecting ends on how that's going to occur in the future, and we've funded that. So I'll be happy to answer any questions as we move forward with regard to this. We do have on our blow up if there's any questions with regard to the emergency entrance and how that is. I think Dale has included that. It's in your packets, but we can blow it up if there's any questions or any suggestions with regard to how we would do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this time, is there anybody in the public who'd like to comment on this matter? Please state your name and address.
My name is Sue Wood. I'm at 665 East Russell Lake Drive. We are the adjoining owner to the emergency entrance that they're proposing, and that is probably one of our biggest concerns. We did submit a letter. I am not positive. It was not in the materials that were attached to the agenda. Okay, very good. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that this was put forth. In the past, an entrance into adjoining land has been denied through a lot in the subdivision or a lot in the neighborhood. We feel that that is a precedent, and that's why this emergency entrance should not be allowed. There has been a proposed entrance off of Oak Street, which is more able to handle the large vehicles of emergency. And our streets haven't been paved since the asphalt was put down in the 70s. So it just is an overburden to our neighborhood to do this. Additionally, there's been comments made that the town would not accept right-of-way over water, and this plat is proposing to dedicate right-of-way over water. And this is at the west end of the plat, about 350 feet worth. will have partial water in that area. Another major concern for our end of the neighborhood and is the drainage. There does not appear from the plans that we have seen a way to get the water through the from our area under the road that goes to the estate lots to the pond. It seems like the pipe that's there stops just past to the northeast side of the road, and it never connects to the pond. Now, I know that was a concern of the Boone County Surveyor also, because not only water from Russell Lake, but there's a lot of water that comes from west of Russell Lake subdivision, from the enclave and the properties over in that area will contribute to this. But lastly, we feel like the developer has requested major waivers, first for zoning, reduction of the setbacks, and it's just one waiver or change, or let's not build it quite to standards from day one. And we feel that there's got to be a point when this has got to be built to the standards that they say, and not a commitment to change this or to change that. It just needs to be built, if it can be built, within the rules of the subdivision ordinance. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment?
My name is Mark Wood and I live at 665 East Russell Lake Drive. That was my wife, Susan, and I have one question for the board. If these guys came to you and said they wanted to put an emergency drive within feet of your house, would you be happy with it? I don't think so. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment?
Good evening, Josh Armstrong. My wife Eliana and I live in 650 Spring Hills Drive. It's the property just adjacent on the eastern edge of the development. I'm speaking tonight not to remonstrate against the project, but to make a request of the Planning Commission. First, I want to thank Mr. Andrioli for productive collaboration to make a number of the adjustments that we requested to the landscaping plan. We did submit a letter describing our views on the project in detail. I want to highlight one thing in particular. Not only are we the nearest neighbors to the project, but we are always also very much dependent on a peaceful and predictable flow of water through Irishman's Run Creek. Although our address is on Spring Hills Drive, our driveway actually goes across the creek. And in fact, last April, the existing structure crossing that creek began to crumble quite dramatically. So instead of remodeling our guest bathroom, we got very familiar with the differences between a culvert, causeway, bridge, and ended up building a bridge on our property. Yeah, thank you for your patience. All this is really just a long way of saying that any additional quantity of water flowing into Irishman's Run has the potential to leave us stranded. Therefore, we're making what is likely an unusual request to remain involved as the plans progress. We just want to have the opportunity to have our comments where relevant be considered prior to the secondary plat approval. So with that, again, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Andrioli, is there anybody else? Oh, hold on. Mike. A couple more.
My name is Nancy Lingem, and I live at 6150 Irish Hill, which is just across the street from Spring Hills Drive, across the street from Russell Lake. We have lived there for 45 years this month. And I knew nothing about this until I got your letter last week about this plot, the plat, the meeting, everything. I was hoping this room would be filled. Unfortunately, it's not. But I have some questions, and my questions are things like, What studies have been done on the population, the impact of this population density in this little area right across the street from where I live? What studies have been done to explore the environmental impact of this proposition? I love sitting, we live back up in the woods. We're not right on the highway. I love sitting out on my front porch and see deer walk across my front yard, see hawks flying over my property. What's going to happen to these animals and this wildlife when all of Russell Lake will be decimated into 150 homes? What solutions do you have for mitigating the traffic on 334 Oak Street? I still call it Deer Creek too, okay? Sometimes it takes me 10 minutes to get out of my driveway now. What's going to happen when 2 years worth of building, construction, all the things that go into building a subdivision like this? I just want to know how you're going to deal with that. How am I going to live with that? And I heard that the timeline is 2 years. But my final question is, how is this subdivision really going to improve the Zionsville and not just improve EPCON's bottom line?
Thank you.
And I don't know when I get those answers, but.
Good evening. I am Roy Bauer with Buckeye Partners. I'm one of the pipelines that come through here. Our address is 5405 West 96th Street. And really, I just didn't know much about this at all. I heard rumblings of it years ago when there were surveyors going through whatever, but the Armstrongs brought it to my attention and I told them that I would be here and just, basically state our concerns as far as our easement there. There was one of the lots that was encroaching on our easement, which I talked to Roger and he said that's been changed. I haven't seen any of the plans yet, but he said that's changed. But basically just protecting our rights of our easement and, emergency access for us to get in there if we were to have an emergency and had to get in there, that kind of thing, because we do have that right. And that's like I say, that's a high pressure petroleum pipeline. It's got gasoline, diesel fuel going through it. So I wouldn't want that in my backyard anyway. So, but yeah, I'm here if you got any other questions or anything like that. So just wanted to thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody, somebody online? I think you're on mute. Josh, you've been promoted. You're on mute.
Teacher voice.
Josh, you're on mute. I will have to proceed. If he joins, let us know. Mr. Andreoli, would you like to comment on these points that were raised?
Some brief comments. With regard to the emergency entrance and the concerns that were raised by the wards with regard to project that happened earlier, I'm familiar with that project. It's the people that own in the very back of Russell Lake. They tried to get an additional building lot back there when the plat itself was not allowing that building lot. That's why they were turned down. It had nothing to do with any of the issues that were relevant to the things that we're dealing with today. Very familiar with that particular concern, and it was actually done twice, and it was turned down twice by the Area Plan Commission. and has nothing to do or any relevance to what we're doing here today. Notwithstanding all of that, with regard to their drainage concerns, and I can have Brett come up and answer any questions to the extent members of the Planning Commission would want, but we're accommodating everybody's water that comes off the site. We're retaining that, and we're not metering it out at a rate that is not permissible under your stormwater management ordinance. We're not asking for any waivers of your stormwater management ordinance, and as to the Armstrong's concerns, members of the Board of Zoning Appeals know this. Members of the Plan Commission may not, is that when we were in this project early on, Ken Ezra, who owns Cobblestone, lives right at the front of the subdivision adjacent to the Armstrongs. And he, through his attorney, Mr. Jacob, raised concerns about drainage and tree preservation and those types of things. And as part of our submittal to the Board of Zoning Appeals, when we received a variance that was necessary, we have written commitments that will be also made part of the record in this particular proceeding, where we've done several things. We've created at the very beginning of the area next to Ezra's property that also helped the Armstrongs, a tree preservation area where we can't go in and disturb the trees unless they're deceased or dying, so that we've kept those in a pristine state and we don't tamper with those. Can you pull this up? It's right here. If you look at the one to your right, up in the right-hand corner, there's that area. That is the tree preservation area that we maintain. That's essentially adjacent to the Ezra's property, which also provides a benefit to the Armstrongs as well. In addition to that, they had some concerns about drainage as it relates to some of the retention aspects of it. And they asked us to put in dry socks that would run the entire length of their property, but all the way down to the south, passing the Armstrong's property, which is another technique that we can use to make sure that we can help with the drainage, especially during construction and those types of things. So we've made those commitments, and we make those commitments again tonight and on behalf of Mr. Jacob, but also the Armstrongs as well with regard to drainage. We've made a commitment to keep the Armstrongs involved at every continued step, and we'll make that a commitment to you tonight that we will do so. They remain diligent. We believe that they're the one property that is truly the most affected in this particular development as it relates to the houses that are so close. If you look at the site plan to your left, and you see where our emergency entrance is, Mr. Ward, Mr. and Mrs. Ward's property is immediately south of that. And that area is mostly in green space. There's a little part of it where the road bends, and we're going to have that landscape, but most of it is to the south and to the east of their property is in that area that is an open area. There's some drainage issues in there, some topography issues, and that will be kept in its current state and not have any houses next to it. Mr. Schaefer's property is immediately to the north of it. And you can basically see those two properties on the drawing that you have there. So one of the things that we struggled with was, should we make this a bike path and a walking path, as well as an emergency entrance? So many of the emergency entrances that we have around town start off as a bike path or a walking path and double as an emergency entrance. Good example of that is just off of Hunt Club Road, where we had the development to the north, and we have a long walking path that goes back there, doubles as an emergency entrance. They haven't gated it. We're going to gate ours. but we decided not to make it a walking path, and for several reasons. We've come up with what we think is an appropriate cure to provide paths along Oak Street. That's really where they should be, as a perimeter bike path along Oak Street. So we think we reached a satisfactory resolution with regard to that. And we didn't want to create extra traffic either coming in and out of there for our residents or the Russell Lake residents. So we're not going to have access by bike or walking paths through there, and we're going to gate it sufficiently so it will not have that, just an emergency entrance only. So as I say, and my only solace to Mr. and Mrs. Ward, and it's probably not any to them, is that this will not be a roadway, and our hope is it will never be used. But if it has to be used, it's there for an emergency use only, and not for ingress and egress for either pedestrian or vehicular traffic under any circumstance. So I'll leave that up. You have any comments you want to make, Brett? Unless members of the Plan Commission have comments or staff would have comments, Brett would be available to talk about the drainage. I would say one thing about it, because we've shared this information with Mrs. Armstrong the other day, all of our drainage calculations and all of that information. All of those drainage calculations were shared with Jeff as well on behalf of the Ezras, and they had an engineer that they had reviewed that and made those requests of us that we've included in our commitments. But the water that we're going to be putting into the creek, it will be substantially reduced in terms of the surface water as part of our drainage calculations and part of our drainage plan. We're going to be putting less water in at less of a rate than it would come naturally flowing right now. And all of that's part of your stormwater management ordinance. And we've not asked for, as I said, any waivers with regard to the impositions on us with regard to stormwater management. But be happy to answer any questions. And I'd turn that over to Brett Huff from a technical standpoint, who's more versed in that than I. Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'll open up to members of the Plan Commission. Questions? Comments?
I just have more of a statement than a question. So in our packet, we have Exhibit 6C, and it's the letter from the Boone County Surveyor. And you're all aware of that, and you're working to do what they've suggested,
I'm sorry?
correct?
I'm sorry, Shane.
Okay, in the packet we have, Exhibit 6C is from the Boone County Surveyor,
Yes.
and they have a few suggestions in there, and you have worked with
Oh,
them?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, those have been, we work very closely with them as part of our TAC. And those have been adopted and placed in the construction plans that are in front of you that staff
Just
has
wanted to-
reviewed. Staff here in Zionsville that review that information as well, including Mr. Susong and the people like that with regard to the stormwater management.
Okay, so that should relieve a little concern from the people who are listening that you have been in contact and
Yes.
reviewing.
One additional thing, and Mr. Schaefer indicated, since we're going to put some impervious width of path in, that we look at and make sure that when we do that, that our plans include making sure that we don't cause any drainage from that area that we're using to sheet off in either directions. And we pick all of that up and take it to our development as well, which we will do.
Thank you. I have another small question then. Who determined the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit through there, through your development?
Sorry?
Who determined the speed limit through the development? It's 25 mile an hour. I want to know where that came from.
Can you answer that? No, you go ahead. Pardon? I don't know the answer to that, so you have to answer it.
Brett Huff
Curious. Seems
with
a little.
Kimley Horn and Associates, Office 250. East 96th Street. Yeah, we're gonna follow the town standard speed limit. If it's 20, 25, I don't really know off the top of my head, but it's gonna be
Gotcha.
whatever the town standard is for subdivision.
I was just curious because the way the configuration looks, I thought that might be just a bit fast. And I'm not a slow driver, so. Thank you.
I know there's a comment related to the waivers that were requested. I would state that, basically these are waivers that we've granted many times over. So this is not inconsistent with our past precedents that we've set with other properties. So I just wanted to address that issue because there was a question on that. I'll ask a question about the emergency access. Again, explain that. Why was that? I mean, was it moved off of Oak Street was it more of a convenience or more of a safety matter to get quicker access to the southern section of that property?
Yeah, I mean, it was, quite frankly, it came up by the discussions that we had Ron Lips from the fire department, and he should have information that he's provided in his packet. That was a suggestion that he made, because quite frankly, when we were talking with him, we're struggling, how are we gonna loop to the west? We only own up to the property line. How are we gonna get a water line to go back out to Oak Street when it's got to go through the lake to get back out there, and the topography of it? And what is it going to do for tree removal? How are we going to get it? How are we going to get it out that way? And in essence, Ron suggested that, well, we're putting water lines in right in the street. So we can put those water lines in and loop the system there. And he said, by the way, it may be better to go to the west to have an emergency entrance, because for the discussion that I had with our members of the Plan Commission earlier, he was concerned that our emergency entrance initially was even farther east than the main entrance, and that it could loop around and get to the actual back of the subdivision in a more efficient and prompt manner. So that's literally how that came up. There wasn't anything nefarious about it, just solved two of the major concerns that we had and got that emergency entrance off, the second entrance off of Oak Street.
All right, thank you. Is there any other questions, comments?
Well, I guess I am gonna pick on the tenor of the letter of credit. A 5-year sunset, if the town hasn't provided some connectivity to that eastern and western border where the difficult building is, more difficult construction of the pathway would be. Some talk of Oak Street lighting and so forth. Government moves slow. It does seem to me that the proposed 5-year tenor on a 2-year build out gives us 7 years. I guess I'm curious if the developer would be willing to extend that sunset date out further.
We've not talked about that, and quite frankly, all the discussion we've had to date centered around the 5-year sunset. And I've not done one of these ever in my life when there wasn't a sunset provision. And so you're not suggesting there not be one. You're suggesting that perhaps it be moved out some. I don't know whether Dale has the authority to be able to make that call here tonight. We'd certainly consider it as part of the approval process, and we've got to do some wordsmithing with the document as it is, because these things take some wordsmithing with them to make sure that they're valid, they're enforceable, and all of that. That's where town council or your council would come in. I've seen these things before. So I can't, it's not my pay grade to commit to either a higher number or a longer sunset date. It's not anything that we've talked about. That really, in essence, gives the town 7 years of flexibility to make a decision.
Well, and forgive me, and at the end of that 7 years, the letter of credit goes away. You
It would.
have to spend the money.
It would, and that, and
If we required you to spend the money, you would have to spend the money, although I would say for fairly silly purpose, given what's going on with the property now. I don't suggest you go
Well,
spend that.
quite frankly, it's going to be an irrevocable letter of credit. If the town wants to spend the money in year 4, they can go ahead and spend the money and just get a contract, do the project, and they got $240,000 sitting there that they can draw to do that. So I guess I don't, I understand your concern. I'm not sure I have the ability to be able to negotiate it here. I just don't. I wish I had some. We didn't know that issue was going to come up, but probably should have anticipated that and had some response, but I don't unless Dale does. Not my favorite.
Well, not mine either, but we understand your concern, and I think we can move that out a bit. I don't know if you have a term in mind that.
Well, the joy of being on the planning commission is we get these materials often just a business day before we have a chance to review it.
Yeah.
And so this is certainly new ground for me as a planning commission member also, but I guess I'm making the assessment it's unlikely things have changed along Oak Street that the money is ever going to be spent. And so to the extent I can push things to capture more value for the town and citizens of Zionsville, I guess I'm trying to. Whether that's a longer tenor or different methods, I'll have to rely on others myself.
And I do think that longer time frame is probably warranted, because if you look at, you're a year plus probably to do engineering to widen the road and put a trail in, put a path in. You've got to bid it. You've got to acquire land. You've got to then, build the road. I mean, 5 years is not nearly as, you'll blink and the 5 years will be gone and the money will be gone.
So Roger, why was 5 years accepted? I'm just curious.
These were discussions that the petitioner presented these options. Our DPW staff reviewed through them. DPW agreed to this number. So
being somewhat familiar with letters of credit in my line of business, it may be an issue. I don't like a bank would issue one. So if we did ask for an extension, there maybe have to be renewal of the document itself. So that may be part of the reason it's 5 years. I don't know, but what are you suggesting?
I don't know. If they can't agree to a number tonight, I don't want to continue it necessarily on this item, but I think in good faith through continued negotiations to try and push it out to maybe closer to 8 years, so that when you've got 2 years of construction, 8 years of
10 years.
Yeah. So then you're hitting that 10-year mark. That seems a little bit more reasonable for the town to get something done.
Okay.
My client has authorized me to move that from a 5-year to an 8-year, which effectively gives you a 10-year window. And quite frankly, if the town does not feel like they want to take $240,000 to build a bike path in the next 10 years, then shame on them.
Yeah.
So at some point, there's got to be a sunset, and somebody's got to make a decision when the money's just sitting there. Why don't you use it and spend it if you're intending to spend? I think that's I hope you believe that's a gracious offer, but we would extend that to 8 years, which would give a full total of 10 years.
All right. Appreciate it very much. Any other questions, comments? You have to come up. No, you got to come up to.
You got to be recorded. You have to be recorded.
Couldn't swear or anything.
Yeah,
We didn't say that.
yeah.
Okay, once again, I'm Nancy Lindjum, 6150 Irish Hill. Is there a plan to have a turn lane into this subdivision? Because I know when I go home down Oak Street to get into my own driveway, it's taking my life in my hands. So with all the traffic and all the trucks, there will be a turn lane.
There are, in the packet, there are additional turn lanes in each direction heading
Off
east
of
and
Oak
west.
Street?
Off of Oak Street.
Hold on.
What?
Okay. All right, so we've got your question, so we'll ask somebody to come forward and answer the question.
Yeah. Fortunately for us, the state went in and acquired a substantial additional right of way, and it needs to be improved, and there's improvements with it. But yes, we're going to have essentially a passing lane on our side, and then of course the church is on the other side and has built lanes over there. So it just happens to coincide that it works well. But we have some additional, even though there's some pavement there, it's going to have to be redone. There's additional improvements that have to be made with regard to the, I guess, the passing blisters, what we'd call it, along there.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I guess I'm just looking to confirm, there's no change in the density of homes here from what the zoning was done in 2020.
I remember very specifically, it was 150 homes between the two properties. So, and looking at this, my personal opinion is that this, I think, meets the spirit of the original plan. So
I would agree, but the questions have been raised about the density, and that was a decided matter a number of years ago at this point.
All right, anything else? So what we would need is 4 separate motions on the waivers, then a motion on the primary plat, and then a motion on the development plan.
So I move that the subdivision control ordinance waiver regarding cul-de-sac length be approved based on the waiver findings included in the staff report, Exhibit 9A as presented.
All right. Is there a second? Any further discussion? We'll just continue the roll call. So go ahead, please.
Sharon Walker,
Aye.
Jim Hurst,
Aye.
Dave France,
Aye.
Mary Grabinowski,
Aye.
Chris Lake,
Aye.
Cindy Madrick,
Aye.
Larry Jones.
Aye. That motion passes 7-0. Waivers granted.
I move that the subdivision control ordinance waiver regarding driveways within 75 feet of an intersection be approved based on the waiver findings included in the staff report, Exhibit 9B as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Go ahead.
Larry Jones. Aye. Cindy Madrick,
Aye.
Chris Lake,
Aye.
Mary Grabinowski,
Aye.
Dave France.
Aye.
Jim Hurst,
Aye.
Sharon Walker.
Aye.
Waivers also granted.
I move that the subdivision control ordinance waiver regarding centerline radius for the street curves be approved based on the waiver findings included in the staff report, Exhibit 9C as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jim Hurst,
Aye.
Sharon Walker,
Aye.
Larry Jones. Aye. Cindy Madrick,
Aye.
Chris Lake,
Aye.
Mary Grabinowski,
Aye.
Dave France.
Aye.
I move that the subdivision control ordinance waiver regarding sidewalks and paths along Oak Street be approved based on the waiver findings included in the staff report, Exhibit 9D as presented.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Roll, please.
Mary Grabinowski,
Aye.
Chris Lake.
Aye.
Cindy Madrick,
Aye.
Larry Jones. Aye. Sharon Walker,
Aye.
Jim Hurst,
Aye.
And me say aye. Okay.
and Dave France.
All right, then we have the primary
Yeah.
plat.
So I move that, let me ask a question first. The 8-year change, does that want to be part of this motion?
Yes.
Okay. I move that docket number 2022-53-PP, a petition for primary plat approval for the courtyards of Russell Oaks consisting of 150 single-family residential lots on 97 plus minus acres in the rural single and two-family residential district R2 be conditionally approved based on the findings of fact, the staff report, and as presented, subject to the resolution of the items within the comment letters, Exhibit 8, and a modification of the commitments for the bike walking path that it have an 8-year sunset in lieu of a 5-year sunset
On the letter of credit.
on the letter of credit. Yes, thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dave France,
Aye.
Mary Grabinowski,
Aye.
Chris Lake,
Aye.
Cindy Madrick,
Aye.
Larry Jones. Aye. Jim Hurst.
Aye.
Sharon Walker.
Aye.
That motion is approved. On to the development plan.
Might as well get this one too. I move that docket number 2022-54-DP, a development plan approval petition for 150 lot, single family residential development on 97 plus or minus acres in the rural single and two family residential R2 district be conditionally approved based on and subject to the findings in the staff report and the staff recommendations, resolution of the remaining review items identified within the comment letters, Exhibit 6, the submittal of a tree inventory along the eastern property line for staff review, the submitted findings of fact.
Second,
Second.
any further discussion?
Jim Hurst.
Aye.
Sharon Walker.
Aye.
Dave Franz.
Aye.
Mary Gabonowski.
Aye.
Chris Lake.
Aye.
Cynthia Madrick.
Aye.
Larry Jones. Aye.
That matter's passed too. Thank you very much. Next on the docket is continued business again, 2022-59 RP. The Clubs and Holiday Farms replat of Lot S and CAB of Section 7 and lots T7 and T8 of Section 8. 3546 South US 421 and 10756 and 10778 Dartmoor Way, Zionsville. Petition for the approval of a replat of Lot S and Common Area B of Section 7 and lots T7 and T8 of Section 8 of the Holiday Farms PUD to modify the previously platted lot lines being in the Planned Unit Development District, Holiday Farms PUD. Are they online or are they present in person?
So President, I'll go ahead and start if you don't
Okay.
mind.
All right.
And-
Oh, that's right.
and Yes, our representatives will be via Zoom here shortly. So this petition requests approval of the replat of Lot S in common areas B of Section 7 and lots T7 and T8 of Section 8 of Holiday Farms to modify the previously platted lot lines within this planned unit development district of Holiday Farms. You will recall the petition was to be heard at the January 17th Plan Commission meeting, but was continued due to the disconnection of the Zoom link. As reflected in the staff report, the purpose of the replat is for the construction of a T intersection of Dartmoor Way rather than the previously approved curved thoroughfare. This new intersection would continue to the east in anticipation of the development of Lot S into potential single-family residential homes, which would require a future development plan petition for review. Staff has worked with the developer to ensure the construction plans for Section 7 and 8 reflect correct sanitary locations, easements, and labeling, and staff has no further comments on the replat. With this in mind, staff supports approval of petition number 2022-59-RP. And we have Brad Hankey and Betsy Garfield, who are representatives for the project, joining us via Zoom.
All right. You're on mute. Okay, there you go.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Hi, Betsy Garfield and Brad Hinkey, 1310 South US 421, Zionsville, Indiana, 46077. We are both with Hinkey Development, and we appreciate you guys having us. We have loved working in Zionsville. It's been some really exciting past few years, and just really been kind of grateful to be a part of this community and seeing it all evolve. The plans that you're looking at tonight, this is where we had originally planned multifamily, and after working with the community and neighbors, we have moved to doing that in high-end residential. We are looking to simply realign what used to be a curved road, and it's just going to end in a T. So hence you'll see the replat of a few of the lots that it was touching, and no other changes there.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for the intro there, Janice. I think you captured everything as well. As Betsy mentioned, we've talked with the families on T8, the Price family, and T7 as well. We did have, I believe, a letter from Mr. Strict, he's on C5, just a little south of this area, south of the 12th hole. And we talked to him, and I think he just wanted to know what we were planning to the east of this area. And as Betsy and Janice alluded to, that'll be residential, high-end residential out just to the east. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions, and yeah, thank you all for your time this evening.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody in the public who'd like to comment on this matter? Online? Yep. Have somebody online.
Am I online?
Yes, you are. Please proceed.
Hi, members of the commission and staff. My name is Greg Strick. I live at 3761 Dartmoor Way, Zionsville. As Brad Hinkey mentioned, I live down the street from this intersection. My letter of interest was written primarily because when the petition was first submitted and was to be discussed at the January 17th meeting, the purpose of that T at the end of Dartmoor was literally unknown. One would go to the T, drive north on Dartmoor Way to the T, turn right, turn east, and you would go to future development. One of my major concerns when the marketplace flats were proposed approximately half a year ago, and that was pulled back, was that the turn into an emergency exit from Dartmoor into the back end of that marketplace flats would have been a risk to residents along this street. Risk in not knowing what kind of 220 unit complex would yield, what kind of resident that would yield, and what kind of risk that would bear on what we would bear as a risk. And so I opposed that. Fortunately, that particular thing was not continued, and I was thankful for that. When this particular petition came up, I thought to myself, well, gee, here we go again. Dartmoor has been through a number of changes over the course of time. I'm one of the first residents on Dartmoor Way, having completed in the middle of 21. But when we purchased, we thought maybe this would be a cul-de-sac, and then it became a construction thoroughfare, which to this day is still that. And then it was to turn left, turn west out to the continuing part of our part subdivision. And then lo and behold, here comes another version of the end of our street going to nowhere. As Brad Hankey alluded to, I did speak to him, and he mentioned that there would be single family residential toward the east. And certainly that was attractive. Being residential is a little less obvious of what that's going to be. And I just had hoped that he would be able to express to the town what exactly is going to be there. I believe the plans are in place. And in the interest of those of us who live on this street, that should be known. It would be a shame if the suggestion was to have it be residential or even single family, and then come another petition that too disappear as previous visions of Dartmoor Way have. And so I had asked that there be some commitment from Hankey Development to the Town Commission of what exactly was going to be out there. And with that, I conclude my comments.
All right, thank you. Would Hankey like to respond on that one?
Sure. Thanks, David. And appreciate your comments, Mr. Strick. As he alluded, we did talk several times, and we have no problem committing that will be high-end residential to the east. We are working on our plans there, but I indicated to Mr. Strick that that'll be another gated entry in that area, and a combination of 90 to 100-foot lots north of the 12th hole. And then as you get further east, they would mirror our P section, which is, I think those are 60 and 70-foot lots. So very, very similar to what we've done within Holiday Farms. And but to his concern, we certainly are comfortable saying it's not apartments, and it's high-end residential. We anticipate those prices to be in the $1 million to $2+ million range in that area. So, thank you.
Thank you. At this point, is there any questions, comments from anyone in the commission?
So could we make that commitment to make this high-end residential as part of the any motion that we put forward on this, Mr. Henke?
Yes, we're definitely comfortable saying high-end residential, like I said.
Anything else? Somebody like to make a motion on this matter?
Okay, I'll make a motion. I move to approve the docket 2022-59-RP replat petition to modify the previously platted lot lines of Lot S and Common Area B of Section 7 and lots T7 and T8 of Section 8 of the Holiday Farms in the Planned Unit Development District, Holiday Farms PUD, attached as Exhibit 6B. 1, approved as presented and described based on the findings in the staff report and the staff recommendations, submitted finding of fact, and the commitment to redevelop the adjoining Lot S as single-family high-end residential structures.
Good for you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Jim Hurst.
Aye.
Sharon Walker.
Aye.
David Franz.
Aye.
Mary Gabonowski.
Aye.
Chris Lake.
Aye.
Cindy Madrick.
Aye.
Larry Jones.
Aye.
All right, that matter passes. Thank you very much. We'll see you with the development plan.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Right.
Next on the docket. New business 2022-61 RP 4071 and 4073 Wildwood Court. Project address is 4071 and 4073 Wildwood Court, Zionsville. Petition for approval of a replat of lots 49 and 50 in the Willow Ridge subdivision to relocate the shared lot line between the two lots, being in the rural single and two-family residential R2 districts. Roger, are you handling this one?
Yes, sir. Just to give our IP a heads up, the representative presenting for the petitioner is Leanne Farrell, and she will be joining us online. So if you want to go ahead and get her queued up. This project, as stated, is a request for approval of a replat to locate the shared lot line between two lots in the Willow Ridge subdivision. The two lots are owned by the same family, Ted and Sarah Brower. And the Browers are they constructed a home in 2015, a single family residence with an outdoor swimming pool. That was constructed on lot number 49. Lot number 50, the adjacent parcel, remains undeveloped. The petitioner is desiring to add a two-car garage adjacent to the existing garage. This additional garage would extend across the current existing lot line as currently platted, which divides lots 49 and 50. To accommodate for setbacks while still maintaining two separate lots, the request is to shift the lot line between lots 49 and 50. By relocating the lot line, the proposed additional garage would comply with required setbacks, and I would refer you to Exhibit 4 from the staff report, which is a plot plan. It depicts where the proposed garage addition would be located and shows that it would be that if the lot line is relocated, that all required setbacks would be met. The only other item of interest regarding this petition is that a petition for development standards variance to permit 2 lots exceeding the maximum lot width to depth ratio of 3:1 was approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals on their February 1st, 2023 meeting. Staff does recommend approval of Plan Commission docket number 2022-61-RP, and be glad to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. Petitioner, please state your name, address, and proceed.
Hi, I'm Lee Ann Farrell with Steppenworth and Associates. We are the engineer of the project 7965 East 106th Street in Fishers. Thank you, Roger, for your explanation of the petition. My only comment to add along is they did get HOA approval for the garage addition.
All right, thank you. Anybody from the public like to comment on this matter? Anybody in the Plan Commission have any questions, comments?
It did come through the BZA. There wasn't really much discussion. It's pretty simple, straightforward request. We didn't have any issues.
All right.
I just real quick to staff, does the remaining lot meet? When somebody wants to sell that and develop on it, is that still a developable lot without coming back to the BZA or the Planning Commission?
Yes, yes, sir. The only area that it would not comply is with the 3:1 ratio, which again was presented to the BZA, and the BZA approved that variance for both lots. So this remaining undeveloped lot could be developed. Someone could buy it now and pull a permit to construct a home on it.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion on this matter?
I move that docket number 2022-61-RP, a petition for the replat of lots 49 and 50 in the Willow Ridge subdivision to relocate the shared lot line between the 2 lots being in the single family and 2-family residential R2 district be approved based on the findings established at the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional questions, comments?
Larry Jones. Aye. Cindy Madrick.
Aye.
Chris Lake.
Aye.
Mary Grabinowski.
Aye.
Dave Franz.
Aye.
Jim Hurst.
Aye.
Sharon Walker.
Aye.
Motion is granted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the docket, I'll just read all 3 at once. Creekside Corporate Park, lots 10 and 11. 10-8-14 and 10-8-15 Creekway, Zionsville. Petition for approval of replat of Creekside lots 10-11 to relocate the shared lot line between the 2 lots being some planned unit development, Creekside PUD. Ray Hall Performance Building number 1, 10-8-50 Creekway, Zionsville. Petition for development plan approval of 104,568 square foot commercial building on lot 10 being zoned planned unit development, Creekside PUD. And Ray Hall Performance Building number 2, 10-8-14 Creekway, Zionsville, petition for development plan approval of a 25,635 square foot commercial building on the lot 11 being zoned planned unit development, Creekside PUD. Please proceed. Oh, we changed the order. Who's handling this one, Roger or Janice?
I am.
Roger, thanks.
Thank you. As mentioned, we have 3 companion petitions to consider regarding this proposal. The first is a replat to relocate the shared lot line between the 2 lots, lot 10 and lot 11 of Creekside Corporate Park. The second petition is a development plan approval for a new commercial building of just under 105,000 square feet. It's a commercial building be located on lot 10. And the third petition is another development plan. This would be for building 2, another commercial building of 25,635 plus or minus square feet to be constructed on lot number 11 of Creekside Corporate Park. The current zoning for all 3 petitions is a planned unit development and is part of the Creekside PUD, so not, and also within sub area E of Creekside. The replat To go into a little bit more description of the different petitions. On the replat, GRP will be developing the two adjacent lots, lots 10 and 11, with commercial buildings housing the GRP operations. The locations of the proposed buildings would place building 1 on the current location of the platted lot line. And so the replat petition is to relocate this current lot line so it will be located between the two proposed buildings, allowing each building to exist on its own lot and comply with the required setbacks. Building number 1's development plan, again, proposed to be constructed on lot number 10. GRP proposes a 104,568 plus or minus square foot, 2-story commercial building, which would include office space, car repair and assembly space, automotive sales for a Ducati dealership, and a small cafe. All of these uses are approved uses now based upon sub-area E of the PUD. With this building also, there will be several environmentally friendly items being incorporated into the design, into the building, which will assist reaching sustainability goals for the project. The third petition, which is a development plan for building number 2, this would be constructed on lot number 11. GRP proposes a smaller commercial building, 25,635 square feet, 2-story commercial building, which would include a 4,000 square foot restaurant, commercial space for a future tenant, and a car museum / exhibit space. Viewing the project as a whole, the proposed project will be pedestrian friendly. New sidewalks will be installed around the perimeter of the site along Creekway and connecting to each building. Paths are planned for connection to the existing trail. Bicycle parking will be provided for each building. A central gathering area is proposed between the two buildings, which will include permeable pavers and an outdoor seating space for the restaurant. Again, the restaurant being within building number 2. There are a couple of items of interest for the Planning Commission to consider and discuss. As part of the development of Creekside Corporate Park, bioswales providing drainage along each side of Creekway were installed. Access points to each lot within Creekside were accounted for in the design in the location of these bioswales. Both of the proposed vehicular access points involved in this replat are new and do not align with the previously identified access points for lots 10 and 11, thereby interrupting the bioswales functionality. Staff has requested the petitioner to provide details regarding the resolution of these bioswales functionality and a maintenance agreement for the shared access easement, identifying responsibilities for the ongoing maintenance of the shared access from Creekway. There's one other item that we asked the petitioner just to clarify, and that is regarding the light height of pole lights within this development on, and I'm sorry, I don't have the sheet number right in front of me, but on one of the sheets, it has a drawing showing a 30-foot tall light fixture. However, on that same sheet in a table, it's referenced as 17 feet 6 inches tall, while I know that the maximum height for lighting based upon the Creekside PUD is 20 feet. So we just need to clarify as to what pole height they are proposing for this development. Regarding staff recommendations for the replat, staff recommends conditional approval of the Planning Commission docket 2023-02 RP, subject to the resolution of items noted within the town's contractual engineer's comment letter and details regarding the resolution of the bioswales functionality. For development plan regarding building number 1, staff recommends conditional approval, subject to the resolution of all the items noted within the staff report and the comment letters. And the recommendation for development plan for building number 2, again, staff recommends conditional approval, subject to the resolution of all items noted within the staff reports and the comment letters. Be glad to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. Now we can do survey.
Okay, hello, I'm Aaron Hurt with Civil and Environmental Consultants. I'm the civil engineer on the project. I think online we have Dan Moriarty with Studio M Architects. So any architectural questions, he can weigh in online. And then Audie Tarpley with Dillon Constructions with me tonight. So they're the contractor on the project. I think Roger did a good job. I might just walk through a few things just to try to clarify a few items. So on the screen is the site plan. The first item with the plat is pretty straightforward. Currently lots 10 and 11, the common lot line would go through building 1. And so we're simply moving the common lot line to split the drive. And so we're just shifting that internal lot line over. So that's the purpose of the plat, the replat. On development plan 1 or for building 1. This is the site plan for the building. It's 2 stories, but primarily just tall space at the beginning, at the front of the building. So Graham Rahal Performance, they work on high-end cars. So this is this will be Graham Rahal's basically headquarters. So he'll have his office space in the back, in the upper level area where we have a mezzanine at the back of the building. And then on the north side or the left side of the building is where they'll work on the vehicles and have the car display area. On the right side of the building will be the Ducati dealership. So the new Ducati facility, and splitting the building will be a cafe that will be shared space for the building to use. So that's building 1. It's about 105,000 square feet. Some features with the building, it will have some interior tanks where we're going to collect rainwater and reuse that in the car operation. We're looking to put solar panels on the roof, working with Duke Energy on that. We will have a couple of electronic car charging stations out front for electric cars. The drainage, we're doing a lot of different things on the drainage. In the upper corner, we're going to have a dry detention area that will be planted with native seeding, seedlings. We do have some rain garden areas. We have some porous pavers. So the area between the 2 buildings is meant to be an amenity space. Building 2, which you can see on the corner of this building will have, or the corner of this page will have an outdoor restaurant. So we're envisioning the space between the 2 buildings will be a nice gathering area with outdoor seating between the 2 buildings. I'll shift over to building 2, which is the smaller building, about 26,000 square feet. In the lower left corner of the building is the 4,000 square foot restaurant. So Rahal is currently working with an operator on that plan, so that'll be finalized, but we'll have outdoor seating, a nice restaurant. In the back of this space is a car museum or storage area where high-end cars will be stored and able to be viewed by people that visit the building. So that will be in the back portion of the building. In the lower right corner, they're currently working with some commercial tenants, probably automotive related. I'm not sure if I'm at liberty to say, but they're actively working on that right now at the right corner of the building. So very automotive focused and will complement the Rahal Racing facility to the east of Creekway. I did want to share some of the renderings, but we have worked with staff. Our landscaping plan, we believe, is compliant. I did want to touch briefly on the bioswale comment. I don't want to get too detailed on it, but if you see the site plan, there are a few blank spaces out on Creekway, and that was originally intended where curb cuts could be located. So the bioswales are not located in those areas. The way our site plan worked out, it just didn't line up very well with those locations for curb cuts. So what we can do is extend the bioswales, we believe, in those areas, and we'll work with the engineering department to make sure we meet their goals for sustainability and the bioswale. So we think there's adequate space there to do that. It's just the two curb cuts didn't quite line up exactly how it was planned, 7 years ago. So, but we will definitely work with staff on that. And then I was going to just switch over to some of the renderings, and Dan Moriarty may speak to this, but I'll just quickly go through the images. So this is the Graham Rahal Performance Building here. So this is the larger 104,000 square foot building. You can see the Rahal facility will be on the left side, and the Ducati dealership will be on the right. And in between will be the cafe, the shared cafe space. Here is another rendering of the Ducati dealership. So this would be on the right side of the building or the east side of the building. And then switching to the restaurant building, the smaller 26,000 square foot building. So this is looking from the southeast. So this would be the commercial space that will be likely automotive related. In the back is the automotive museum or car storage area at the back. And then on the left is the restaurant building or the restaurant use. So, and we understand we're going to need to work with staff on signage for the permitting. So obviously that rendering just says signage, but we'll come back with more detailed specifics on the signs for the building. I guess, I don't know, Dan Moriarty, do you want to offer anything on the architecture?
Really, can you all hear me?
Yeah, please state your name, address, please.
Yeah, this is Dan Moriarty, Studio M Architecture, home address 3628 Eden Place, Carmel, Indiana. Really, I think Aaron's covered, as he said, Graham's in active conversations with restaurant providers, and we don't have this particular signage as of yet for what that might be, but we'd certainly understand when and if that arrangements made, that we'd be back through the commission for any signage related issues. Or basically a combination of metal panel on the main building. We have some brick detailing that you see here on the restaurant in the front with storefront. The dealership on the corner also would be like an Alucobond metal panel. Excuse me. Then on the main building, I don't know if you want to jump back to that, Aaron, on your screen, but as you can see, it's a combination of the Alucobond metal panels. We're still working with Ducati on their color schemes, and their latest scheme or their latest corporate standards include actually a white canopy, so to speak, with red letters. So we're in the process of revising those colors for Ducati. It's the same design, same arrangement, just a little bit different scheming on the colors in that area. As Aaron said, the coffee shop in the middle there, Graham is working as well with a regional coffee provider, I guess you'd say, been very successful. That will also be open to the public. That's just not for the facility itself, but that will be of course, available to outside guests. And really just here to answer any questions the group might have.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think that covers it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Is there anybody in the public who'd like to comment on this matter? Being none, is questions, comments from the planning commission members?
So there's no access off 106th Street?
Right, that's correct. There's an existing curb cut there, but our intent is not to use that. I think engineering staff prefer that stay there in case they needed it for maintenance purposes, but our intent is not to use that curb cut.
If I can clarify and add
Sure.
on to that, that topic did come up during the TAC discussion. And DPW even commented that because the town put that curb cut in place, it's going to be the town's responsibility to take it away. And that is the DPW's intention.
Yeah, my only concern was when we just had the subdivision that needed separate emergency access. And if you had a wreck at the entrance of Creekside on the entrance drive itself, and it was blocked, there's no way to get to this building if there were a medical emergency. And so I'm surprised that for as much square footage as there is here, in the likelihood of something like that happening, given what they're doing, that there is not some accommodation for access off of 106th Street.
I can give you the technical response that has been provided to me by the other departments for that, because the entry into Creekside is a true boulevard entry, meaning it's wide enough for more than just two vehicles to go in, that satisfies the requirement for 2 points of entry. I'm just giving you the.
Yeah, if you had a semi coming out of Ray Hall's current building, crossing to turn left onto Creekside Way or whatever that's called, and a car T-boned it, that road is completely blocked. The boulevard only extends for the first 75 feet or whatever it is. So I'm just surprised that there's no access off there. Also knowing that they're going to have trucks, potentially car carriers and stuff coming in and out of there from time to time, that there's not access.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
Kind of following up on Chris, on one hand, on a positive note, what do we look for parking per 1,000 square feet of retail commercial space?
Zionsville's 3 or 3.5 per 1,000.
So the positive note is that the 26,000 foot building appears to be substantially over parked. If I'm counting up right, there's 191 spaces around it. But to what Chris was saying, I don't see any kind of dedicated offloading space for semis on this site, and car carriers, and given the scale and the amount of square footage, I don't see any kind of loading docks. I don't see any kind of area dedicated for loading, offloading vehicles. What's the plan?
I think I can answer that, Aaron. Y'all can start.
I can answer it. My name's Audie Tarpley. I'm the president of Dillon Construction and manage the design for this facility.
Stand over by the mic.
By the mic, please.
Sorry. There are no large trucks coming in and out of this facility. There's no truck dock. The car carriers are private car carriers with 1 or 2 vehicles at the most. We've done the turn radiuses on the lot, and that's what set up. You might notice that some of the aisles are a little wider than normal just for that, but they're private carriers. There are no large car carriers that are going to enter this property.
So when Ducati delivers their first load of motorcycles, they're not going to come with a 53-foot semi?
Actually, at the facility in Brownsburg, very few of the large over-the-road trucks. They're coming in, batches of 3, 4, 5. The first one, you're right. It probably will be a larger load, for that one, but that's not what would be coming in and out of here on a regular basis.
But can that be accommodated in this site? Because I know this northwest corner of the building doesn't look like there's much room to get a semi around that corner of the building.
Yeah, we have done auto turn simulations on this. It's a little deceiving, I think, because of the scale, but we've run the fire trucks through here and semi deliveries. And like Audie was saying, we've widened out behind the building here. And the way this is set up too, there's a garage door as you come in off of Creek Way, and you can go straight in to the facility here. So that, I think that's part of the intent, is that he will actually, they can pull cars or trucks straight in and then back out and then go around. And I think just the nature of this facility, they're dealing with high-end cars, and like Audie was saying, they don't get as much truck traffic as maybe a typical car dealership might. And but we have run auto turn through here, and it does accommodate that a semi.
I mean, their existing facility in Brownsburg, the entire rear of their location is semi truck docks.
Well, it is an industrial park.
Correct. That's my point.
Yes, sir.
Because I don't think we want to have any vehicles loading and unloading on the street.
No, sir.
I mean, Pearson Ford is bad enough that they use Michigan.
Yeah.
And it's a car dealership and a motorcycle dealership.
Yeah, that is.
They're going to be delivered vehicles on car carriers.
That's not
These
true.
are one of a kind cars. There's no.
Yeah, I own a few of them. So
Okay.
yeah, I understand exactly what they are.
Okay.
And I've had them delivered on car carriers and.
Yeah.
So. I find it highly suspect that we're not going to end up with Creekside Boulevard being used as a truck dock.
I guess why, if I can ask,
Sure, go ahead.
am I on mute still?
No, you're fine.
I can ask, why would someone park on Creekside Avenue and unload a truck when you can drive a car carrier, if you had a car carrier, which we don't suspect many or expect many, that can completely rotate or can drive around the facility as well as park inside the building. Why would anybody park out in Creekside to unload a car? That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me, but there's as Audie and Aaron both said, and you know yourself if you've owned them, like the clearance on these cars is almost non-existent on some of them. So many of them never see the outside. They come in or loaded inside. They're worked on inside. They're reloaded and reshipped back to the owner. So I think it's misleading to characterize this as a high volume operation. It's just not. We're not looking at an Andy Moore, Chevy here or something that's bringing in, loads of cars every day.
Yeah, and my concern wasn't volume. My concern was simply just that somebody's made sure these trucks are going to fit in there, because you can tell me you're not going to get anything, but depending on what you order, shoot off Wayfair, if it comes LTD carriers, it's coming on a 53-foot truck in the middle of Stonegate. So if you've run truck turn, it works. That was my question.
Yeah, we have. We've run that. We've got a wider 28-foot drive that really widens out in the back and then run full auto turn through it. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I'm going to jump over to architecture, given that's my background. I've supported this project from the beginning, even when it wasn't supported here locally. So thank you for doing this project. So I'll start there. On building 2, kind of disappointed with the facade design on that. It looks like brick is literally glued to the front of the building, and there wasn't much regard to how the brick integrated with the building itself. That's the only brick on either building. Both buildings are more modern looking, but then we've slapped a traditional brick element on the front of it to, I'm assuming, appease somebody. I don't know who that somebody is. But to me, that building needs some design work.
We would agree with you.
Okay.
And I think Dan could chip in there. He knows that there's more work to be done. We were wanting some input from the ultimate user for it before we finished it, but we do know that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and if you're going to do an element like that, and the restaurant wraps the corner with outdoor seating, wrap that element around the corner. It might help.
That's good. That's good.
And then, I'm glad to hear something's going on with the Ducati red roof there, because it looks like it weighs about 200 tons and is going to crush the glass. These cars are very sexy, and that's very heavy and not sexy. So it's everything that the cars and the motorcycles aren't. And so if there's a way to lighten that up and maybe not do the columns that look super modern and are not gonna, look good in the next 10 years. That corner has always bothered me from the beginning. The mayor and I had conversations about that when she was trying to decide whether or not to support the project. So I think that corner needs a little bit of work. It's just too much, too heavy. I don't know, not quite the right character for that lot. And I've said my piece.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I guess we did want to clarify on the light poles. We will comply with the PUD ordinance. They will be 20 feet or less. So I think they're really at the 17.5, but we'll make sure they're not more than the 20 feet.
Yeah, the photometric plan says they're 17.6, and so you probably run into photometric issues if you take them to 30 anyway. So
Yeah. So, okay. Just clarifying that.
All right, thank you. Anything else? If not, are there 3 motions on this matter?
I have a quick question.
Mr. President, could we interject just a minute?
Sure. All right. Go ahead, Larry.
Larry.
Larry, were you gonna just ask?
Yeah, I
a
know.
question?
What's the height of the overhead doors you've got on this building on the back side?
They vary.
Dan, can you comment on that, on the overhead doors?
Yeah, they vary if they're under the mezzanine or if they're in the high bay area themselves, but I believe they're 14 feet in the high area and 10 feet below the mezzanine.
How tall is a semi anymore?
Well, most underpasses are 14 feet, so if it can fit on an interstate, it can fit in our building.
Yeah, I can actually semi those more like 12 feet max. Something like that.
Yes, did you have something?
Yes, what we're hearing from the Plan Commission is the desire, or at least the thought process, I think, that what we're looking at architecturally is conceptual. And if that is the case, I would like direction from the Plan Commission. Do you want this project to be presented back to you as far as architectural screens? Is a subcommittee something that you're looking for? Are you wanting for staff to approve the eventual new elevations? Just need your direction.
I'd say Chris, I mean, sounds like a subcommittee.
Yeah, I mean, I would hate to be in the situation we are sometimes where we put some concerns out there. And these are concerns that, I mean, I've talked to administration about, town council, and I have had conversations about as this has moved forward. And so, yeah, I don't want to just present them and then everybody goes off and we get the same thing that's on the screen. So whatever process that is, I think this, as prominent as this is, it needs probably a little bit more from our side, a little bit more shepherding, if you will.
So we've got a couple options. I guess we could approve the plat or the replat, but we continue the 2 plans.
In the past, if I can, the project has been approved in the past, subject to the subcommittee working with the developer.
Okay, I mean, then that was that. Okay, I said that was one option. That's the second option. So
yeah, I prefer to not personally continue them.
Okay, I mean, that's fine. I mean, so
but
do we have volunteers for a subcommittee? Chris,
I opened my mouth, so I guess I'm.
I'll be on it because I agree with you. I think that
Okay.
doesn't even go with the rest of the.
So everybody else?
Need one more. Right, is that right? 3?
I'll jump in there. I'm not too far from it every day. So.
All right.
All right, so we have a subcommittee that they'll work with architect on the design. And we'll trust you. Thanks very much for volunteering, everybody. All right, with that, we can proceed to the motions.
So I'll do a motion on the replat. I move to approve the docket 2023-02-RP, a petition for the replat of lots number 10 and number 11 in the Creekside Corporate Park to relocate the shared lot line between the 2 lots being in the planned unit development Creekside PUD. Be conditionally approved based on the findings established at the public hearing and subject to the resolution of items noted within the town's contractual engineer's comment letter, see Exhibit 7, and details regarding the resolution of the bioswale's functionality.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Nope. Go ahead.
Sharon Walker,
Aye.
Jim Hurst,
Aye.
David Franz,
Aye.
Mary Grabanowski,
Aye.
Chris Lake,
Aye.
Cindy Madrick,
Aye.
Larry Jones.
Aye.
All right, that matters approved. Development plans.
So how do we motion these? Do we note that the final design is subject to
Subject to approval from the
subcommittee?
Planning Commission Subcommittee.
Okay.
What we call Architectural Subcommittee.
Okay. So I move the docket number 2023-03-DP, a development plan approval of 104,568 plus or minus square foot commercial building on lot 10 of Creekside Corporate Park being zoned planned unit development, Creekside PUD, be conditionally approved based on and subject to the findings in the staff report and the staff recommendations, resolution of all items noted within the staff report and the comment letters, Exhibit 6, the submitted findings of fact, and approval by the architectural subcommittee of the Plan Commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Larry Jones,
Aye.
Cindy Madrick,
Aye.
Chris Lake,
Aye.
Mary Grabanowski,
Aye.
David Franz,
Aye.
Jim Hurst,
Aye.
Sharon Walker.
Aye.
That matter is also approved.
And let's see. I move that docket number 2023-04-DP, a development plan approval of a 25,635 plus or minus square foot commercial building on lot number 11 of the Creekside Corporate Park, being zone plan unit development, Creekside PUD, be conditionally approved based on and subject to the findings in the staff report and the staff recommendations, resolution of all items noted within the staff report and the comment letters, Exhibit 6, the submitted findings of fact, and approval of the architectural design by the architectural subcommittee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mike?
David Franz,
Aye.
Mary Grabanowski,
Aye.
Chris Lake,
Aye.
Cindy Madrick,
Aye.
Larry Jones,
Aye.
Sharon Walker,
Aye.
Jim Hurst.
Aye. That matter is also approved. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Next on the docket, rules, materials, amendments to the Plan Commission Rules of Procedures.
Yes,
Go
I
ahead.
can take that, sir.
Where is it?
First item would be regarding Becknell. We also call it 267 Industrial Park. This is something that staff is bringing to your attention. It is a minor amendment. With an 8-foot chain link fence is to be installed at the rear north face of Building 4 in the loading dock area with Becknell, or as I said, the 267 Industrial Park. The location of the fence is 150 feet from the northeast corner of the building, and it's 250 feet wide by 80 feet. A knock box will be installed at gates, and the petitioner has already contacted the fire marshal to ensure compliance with the locking mechanisms. We did ask the stormwater and engineering department to review this. Again, it is simply a minor amendment, one that we're just bringing to your attention.
All right, thank you.
If you'd like, I can go ahead to the rules of procedure. Staff has provided to the Plan Commission members hard copies of the proposed resolution should the proposed amendments or revisions be accepted tonight. A red line copy of the request revisions, a clean copy for reference, and a template of the Plan Commission commitments form have also been provided. Briefly reading into the record, these revisions include an update to the cover and adoption page to include adoption and effective dates. The meeting time change from 7 o'clock to 6:30 p.m. We've corrected the address of Town Hall. There's a language revision replacing a reference to the office of the clerk to the finance and records department. It includes verbiage requiring the use of the town generated commitment forms when applicable. It includes the option to notice not just by certified mail with return receipt, but also first class mail. And finally requires that a list of adjoiners be included in the application packet. Staff is requesting your approval for these revisions. We've done a fairly thorough search of any additional revisions that might need to be made to the rules. And I believe that this would conclude the many times we've brought the rules back to you. So asking for your approval and happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for all your work on this.
Any questions, comments? So we need a motion to approve or to recommend. What is the motion? Approving. It's your,
This is your home rule, it's your rules. Yeah. So
motion
take them
to
out of the-
approve.
So moved.
Amendments, second,
Second.
any discussion? I'll do this one voice vote. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Those are approved. Is there one last item?
Another
Let's
business
go.
item.
Mike, you're gonna have one.
Yeah, right. I think it's been about a year and a half since the town contracted with McKenna and Associates to draft a new zoning code called the form-based code. Since then, we did receive a draft, administrative draft of the proposed form-based code. Staff has been meeting with McKenna Associates roughly every week. In fact, last week, I think there were 3 staff meetings over that project. We're about halfway through reviewing the draft code. Another half to go. We anticipate at this point, still wish to bring the draft code to the Plan Commission in the first quarter. That's our goal right now. Because we're already in the second quarter, almost on the first quarter. And then ultimately, of course, public hearings and presenting the staff recommendation and the Plan Commission's recommendation to the town council. So I just wanted to just bring it to the forefront. If you have any thoughts or concerns at this moment, let us know. We're still just moving along on the project.
Okay.
I will just note that is political things have been kicking around more. The folks out in Perry Township are getting more adamant that it's time to update the code.
It's coming along. And we are moving as quickly as we can, given the rest of the staff workload.
All right, any other matters, discussions, items, anything? If not, there's a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor by aye.
Aye.
Aye.